Good Wednesday evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Western Mass News at 6. I'm Chris Pisano. Let's take a quick look at what's making the latest headlines. 74 veterans die from COVID-19 in the Holyoke Soldiers Home. Tonight, Western Mass News getting you answers on what went wrong. The House is ready to deliver another stimulus package to Americans in need, but Republican senators say it's not going to happen. And battling COVID-19, a sister sharing the emotional journey her brother has been on in the fight for his life. But first tonight, it has been more than a month since the deadly outbreak of COVID-19 at the Holyoke Soldiers Home. 88 veterans have died, 74 of those testing positive for the disease. The home's handling of the outbreak and the aftermath now under intense scrutiny as families are left with concerns about their loved ones' deaths. Western Mass News is investigating the situation and getting answers. And our own Audrey Russo joins us live in Holyoke with more. Audrey?
Over the last few weeks, I've spoken with family members, loved ones, and those who work at the home about what went wrong. I spoke with one family of a veteran who died early on in the coronavirus outbreak on March 31st. The family of Albert Nodi tells me that they were told he tested negative, but they tell me that the cause of death listed on his death certificate raised suspicions.
He loved being in the Air Force Reserve.
When Albert Nodi became sick with dementia and started losing weight, his family knew they could count on the care he received at the Holyoke Soldiers Home.
They knew he was going to decline in a matter of months, so it was time to put him into hospice care.
But Albert's sister-in-law, Cindy Nodi, says he was acting like his normal self on March 3rd, the last time she ever saw him alive.
He was actually dancing with me.
On March 22nd, Cindy got a call from the home that COVID-19 was discovered on Albert's unit, 1 North.
He had a fever and he was tested.
Cindy says the test results took a while to come back. And in that time, the music-loving active veteran was deteriorating fast.
He stayed in the recliner, wouldn't eat, and drank very little. And he never, ever stayed in bed or in the recliner. Couldn't get him to sit in the recliner.
Cindy says she was told the first patient who tested positive was isolated.
So if you have these other guys that you're testing for COVID, are you isolating them too? And they just kind of went, no, we don't have any place to do that.
And Cindy says veterans from 2 dementia wings were combined into 1.
Taking people who weren't sick and putting them in where the people were sick was just, I just don't understand what were you thinking?
And 9 days after Cindy got the call that COVID-19 was on Albert's unit, she got another call. Albert died on March 31st.
When he passed away, I asked again, what were his test results? And they said, no, they're negative. We're going with that. Like, basically, we're not going to retest them. We're not going to question this, even though he was completely symptomatic for COVID for the entire 9 days before he died. So we thought that seemed like more of a cover-up.
Cindy says her concern only grew when she received Albert's death certificate. On it, only one cause of death: dementia.
We thought that perhaps the medical examiner would flag that and question it because dementia isn't a cause of death, but they let it go through.
Because where he had died at the Soldiers Home facility, and with so many cases reported, it does seem a little odd that was the sole cause.
Western Mass News spoke with Michael Usher, the funeral director of Lombard Funeral Home, which handled Albert's arrangements.
We usually ask for dementia with contributing causes. It can't be a sole cause.
Usher says getting a signed death certificate and remains transferred to a funeral home usually happens within 24 hours. In Albert's case with the Soldiers Home, Usher said the process took days.
Very difficult, probably one of the most difficult cases I've had in 40 years, 30 years of trying to get a cause of death.
Now the state's Office of the Chief Medical Examiner has begun sifting back through death certificates issued early on in the COVID-19 pandemic.
They should consider re-examining a death certificate that lists dementia in a patient who had COVID symptoms for the 9 days that he became critically ill.
A quick ending to Albert's life. One Cindy says was comfortable in the Holyoke Soldiers Home up until the last 9 days.
He was getting affection and positive reinforcement, like they were so good with him.
We reached out to state officials to see if they would re-examine a death certificate like Albert's. They responded tonight saying, in part, quote, the DPH review includes the death certificates of individuals who were not tested for COVID-19, but who otherwise meet epidemiologic or symptoms criteria to identify whether those deaths should be included in the state's data on COVID-19 deaths. Presumably, this would include people who tested negative but had symptoms of COVID. Reporting live in Holyoke, Audrey Russo for Western Mass News.
Audrey, thank you for that live report. One day after House Democrats unveiled the HEROES Act, the bill calling for more stimulus money in the pockets of Americans, Congressman Richard Neal, the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, was in Springfield with a strong message. He's firing back after Senate Republicans spoke out yesterday. Western Mass News reporter Lindsay Kane joins us live in downtown Springfield with more. Lindsay.
Some Senate Republicans are warning that the bill will not pass the Senate, but Congressman Richard Neal says he understands it's a document of negotiation.
It should not be a partisan issue.
Senate Republicans warning House Democrats after they unveiled a new relief package at a price of more than $3 trillion, the largest relief package in history.
It's got so much unrelated to the coronavirus, it is dead on arrival.
The proposed legislation, called the HEROES Act, would provide fiscal aid to states and local governments, including $22.5 billion to Massachusetts, more stimulus money to qualifying Americans, and some to people who did not qualify in the last rounds of payments, hazard pay for essential workers, and an extension of unemployment benefits, all outlined in an 1,800-page document.
Governors across the country, including Governor Baker, have indicated that they are supportive of what we're attempting to do.
But Senate Republicans are speaking out, warning House Democrats on their proposal.
What Nancy Pelosi is proposing will never pass the Senate.
Congressman Richard Neal at a press conference in Springfield on Wednesday says he knows the proposed legislation is a document of negotiation, but time is of the essence.
We are better off investing now, trying to stem the tide of the disease, rather than waiting too long when the problem becomes far worse.
But Western Mass News is digging deeper into the criticisms from Senate Republicans and what that means for the future of the proposal.
They said that on the last 3 occasions. I can't believe there's a Republican in the United States Senate who's not going to vote to give his or her governor some assistance.
Neal stressing that Republicans made similar comments about earlier bailout bills, which all eventually passed. But he says talk has not stopped with Republicans.
I don't know that negotiations ever really break off. I mean, I can tell you the conversations are ongoing.
The House is expected to vote on the bill on Friday. Live in MGM Studios, Lindsay Kane, Western Mass News.
Lindsay, thank you for that live report. New at 6, we have a new look showing how COVID-19 has impacted Bay State Health starting on April 3rd. When Bay State began providing more detailed information, nearly 28% of those tested were positive for COVID-19. And of those positives, nearly 36% were hospitalized. Over the past 6 weeks, the cumulative rates have declined. As of today, about 15.5% have tested positive, with just over 6% being hospitalized. In all, Bay State has performed nearly 9,400 tests. Now to an exclusive story about one of those Bay State patients. We hear from a woman whose brother is up against the biggest battle of his life. Richard Davio is being treated for the coronavirus. A Western Mass News reporter, Briseida Landaverde, spoke exclusively to his sister about his fight against COVID-19.
And I can't imagine this world without him.
Debbie Davio describes her brother, Richard Davio, as a healthy 40-year-old with no pre-existing medical conditions. She says it was a shock to her entire family when he was diagnosed with the coronavirus.
This virus doesn't seem to discriminate, and I don't think we know enough about it, and I think that's a little bit scary.
Richard showed early symptoms for COVID-19.
It was early April, and he wasn't feeling well. He had a fever, and he had very bad migraine.
And as time passed, his condition only worsened, and he wound up at Bay State Medical Center.
April 11th, he entered the hospital, and he was just on a nose cannula, and His breathing got worse, his lungs got worse, and on April 20th, they decided that they had to vent him.
Richard is currently on an ECMO machine to ease the strain on his heart and lungs. As part of his treatment, he has received both hydroxychloroquine and convalescent plasma. Debbie tells Western Mass News the plasma helped his condition, but he still developed pneumonia.
As of today, he is doing better. As far as his numbers go, his pneumonia is getting better. His white blood count is better.
Debbie tells me one of the hardest things is that she hasn't been able to have in-person communication with her brother. But she says Bay State Medical Center has been an enormous help in helping her family and her brother communicate through FaceTime. Richard is sedated and intubated, and while on FaceTime calls, he cannot talk. He has 2 daughters, ages 17 and 13, and Debbie says while these are very difficult times, the family is thankful to be able to see him, even if it's virtually.
We want the girls to be able to talk to him because we think it's really important that he knows that they're there.
As for the road ahead, he is weeks away from a full recovery, but Debbie says Richard is a fighter, and so is the rest of the family.
We need to bring him home for his girls and, for the things that he loves.
A family friend has set up a GoFundMe page to help the Davio family and the restaurant he owns, Damn Yankees Barbecue, get through these hard times. For more information, head to westernmassnews.com. In Springfield, for Western Mass News, I'm Briseida Landaverde.
And for more coverage on the coronavirus emergency as it continues to develop, log on to our free Western Mass News streaming app.